So last week I was watching a programme on television. I was watching it and it was talking about breastfeeding and the issues that you have with it, and it was really interesting. It was interviewing several different ladies and whether they should breastfeeding and what their experiences were. One woman believed that you should breastfeed because it was really good for the child's immune system and good for the protecting them against diseases and germs and bacteria as they grow up. There was some really surprising statistics that in Britain there's such a lower percentage that actually breastfeed as of the rest of Europe, which means that most people in Britain are actually bottle feeding their babies. That really surprised me. There was another lady who shared her experience of having twins and breastfeeding both of them at the same time. The government's recommendation is that you should breastfeed until a child is around 2 years old. However, some people believe that it's up to the individual person. The one lady in particular, she had a very high risk of breast cancer in her family, and the generations subsequent to her had all had breast cancer. So she decided that she was going to carry on, hoping that that would possibly be a prevention. There was another girl a lady who had a girl who was 8 years old. She was still breastfeeding her at 8 years old, and I didn't like that. I really disagreed with that myself. I think once a child has developed teeth, that's not something that you want to do. I think that's really bad. She was in full-time education. She's going to school every day. That's not something that you can really do whilst they're at school. That child's going to become very needy of the mother. I just personally don't agree with that. The mum was explaining that it was to do with the bond and keeping that bond with a child, and that's why she'd carried on breastfeeding. Another mother had a daughter who was 4 and she was still breastfeeding child, but she also then wanted to adopt a baby. She was adopting a little girl from China. So they flew over to China and adopted a little daughter, a little beautiful little girl. She was 2 years old. So they had adopted the child, and the mother started trying to breastfeed, but the child was very defensive and didn't want to, really didn't take to the breastfeeding at all. So her own daughter was doing it, that was fine, but the adopted child wasn't. The woman got quite emotional and upset about it. Because she wouldn't drink the breast milk. So she came up with an idea to take the breast milk, squeeze it onto a spoon, and then feed it to the baby. She was really excited because they'd done it, and she kept doing it again and again. Personally, I wasn't really happy with that, because I feel like you shouldn't pressure the child and force the child to drink it. If your baby is born from you and it comes from your womb and it's your flesh and blood, it's a natural progression for it to breastfeed from you. Again, I would stop about 2 when the child starts to develop teeth, but I didn't agree with that. I didn't agree with the one 100% 8 years old. I just didn't think that was right, and I didn't think it was good for the child's development. It makes them become very needy of the mum, and I don't know, I just really didn't like that at all. And the adoption one, like I was saying, I don't feel like you should force a baby to do it. It's not your flesh and blood, so it shouldn't have to breastfeed from you. It's not a natural thing if it's not actually your child. Especially if the child wasn't taking to it and it was almost like force feeding it. I didn't like that. I understand breastfeeding into a bottle and then feeding it to the child. Obviously, it is a lot better for the immune system and the health of the baby, but again, it's dodgy ground.